Well, Tennessee Titans fans, the dark ages have returned. That and more on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is a devastating loss for the Tennessee Titans. And not only is this 37-27 embarrassment to the Cincinnati Bengals a bad loss in and of itself, but it is a symbol for where this Tennessee Titans team and where this Tennessee Titans franchise is right now at the end of the day. Do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. But at the end of the day, this is more than one loss. These back-to-back losses at home, where this season is right now, the calamity that is the quarterback position, the head coaching situation, this is the game where we all take off the two-tone glasses. No, even those of us who still are wearing them at this time in the season, because I know a lot of people took them off a long time ago, but this is where everyone collectively, we all look around each other in the Titans tribe, we take our two-tone glasses off and we go, we are back into the dark ages, folks. This reminds me of 2014, 2015 level Tennessee Titans football with Jarrell Casey as the one good player on the defensive side of the ball. And then you got some other things sprinkled around and you're rotating through the Charlie Whitehurst and the Zach Mettenbergers and the Jake Lockers. Like, we're back. We're back. We're back to exactly where we were during those times. Things may not be exactly the same consistently, but the feeling is of not only is this franchise losing every Sunday, not only are they doing it in embarrassing fashion, not only is it a demoralizing loss every single time with certain aspects of the team being utterly broken and embarrassing, not only is all of that going on, but I don't see any end in sight. Like, I have tried, I'll be honest with you, those of you who say I'm too negative and say that I'm so pessimistic about the team that it ruins your experience, that's fair. I have tried to be optimistic this year. I have tried to stick it out. I have tried to be patient. I have tried to preach patience and positivity, and we're on the right track. Things will get better. But at some point, again, the two-tone glasses got to come off. And the reality is, the Titans are going in the wrong direction right now. And it's a fundamental failure at every single level. This team is outcoached every single week. They make embarrassing mistakes, turnovers, penalties. What player has gotten better this year as the season has gone along, or from last season has gotten better this year? I'm sure if I sat down to make a list, I could get some players. Peter Skoronski is better this year. There are players that are better this year. Dylan Radins has been better this year. There are players who have gotten better, certainly. But the overall idea of where is there any improvement right now? And I know that some people say, hey, on Sundays, we feel that emotion. We wake up, we go throughout the week. It doesn't, no, we have to wake up to what's in front of us here. There are dark times ahead, because even if you change the head coach, even if you go get a new quarterback, whoever you want that to be, whatever name makes you happy and gets the endorphins firing, then you say that quarterback in your head. Okay, they get the quarterback. Well, what about the offensive line? What about the pass rush? What about wide receiver? What about the coach? Okay, all right, you want Brian Callahan fired, they fire Brian Callahan. Which, I have continued to say, I don't think there's any way that he gets fired after one season. But, man, I don't know. because these kind of losses at home that embarrass the owner while the owner is up in the press box watching the game, and these kind of games that embarrass the owner where Levis looks terrible, they're turning over the ball, they look like a mockery of football is what it is. It's a clown show out there. To have that on your home field back-to-back weeks to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who you hate, and then to the Cincinnati Bengals, who you hate, to have that happen, owners are people. They have emotions. So if I'm Amy Adams Strunk up in the booth, what am I thinking right now? You know what I mean? So I don't feel quite as confident that Brian Callahan is not a one-and-done coach at this time. I wouldn't do it still as you stand right now because it just creates and then like Rand Carthon's a lame duck GM going into the year, and he feels the pressure, and like I just don't know if that's a great way to run your organization. And what coach are you going to hire? That's the point. What coach are you going to hire after you can Brian Callahan? You fire Mike Vrabel, which already looks bad, whether good, bad, or indifferent, it looks bad, okay? You fire Mike Vrabel, and that looks bad, and the rest of the NFL is like, what are you doing? And then you fire Brian Callahan, one and done. It's the Callahan name. Whether Brian Callahan did a good name or not, you have embarrassed the Callahans, even if he deserved it or not. What coach is then lining up to, all right, I'll go there? And Amy Adams Strunk has money, but she isn't one of the richest owners in the NFL. So it's not like she's going to pay over market price for a coach. So you get the coach right. Well, what about quarterback? What about offensive line? What about wide receiver? What about pass rush? They're so far away. They're so far away. And we could talk about rebuilds. You are not rebuilding the pass rush in free agency. You are not rebuilding wide receiver in free agency. Like you're not, the way that you rebuild these critical positions is you draft studs early in the draft, and then you build around those people at the critical positions. O-line, edge, pass rush, wide receiver. Like there is no fix all of this in one all season. And from what we know as Tennessee Titans fans, what in the world would lead you to the believe that the Titans could fix quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, and edge rush, the four most important things in football? How could they do that outside of one offseason? We already saw them fail at it this offseason, which I thought it was unrealistic to think that they would fix everything in one offseason. But at the end of the day, the way that it looks out there on the field with all the critical elements of football, coaching, quarterback, O-line, D-line, wide receiver, with the most critical elements of football failing at such tremendous levels, how could you have any confidence whatsoever that this team is going to turn it around anytime soon? It's debilitating to feel that way. It's depressing to feel that way. But the reality is we are back in the dark ages right now, and they are going to need a miracle this offseason for that to turn around. Whatever you think that miracle is going to be, they're going to need it. But with that being said, part of that is Will Levis is done, and it's time to have that discussion. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. My favorite part of the holidays is Christmas. I love all the vibes just in general. I love the music, being cozy at home in the winter months, wrapping up with a blanket, watching some football usually, but I think I'll move to watching movies. Now, therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort, though, that never goes away even when the seasons change. I've worked with BetterHelp before. It was a great experience. I know that you will like it as well. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, you got to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can choose therapists at any time for no additional charge as well. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by the College Football Playoff on TNT. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all of the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins on December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Make sure that you watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Titans fans, let's continue today's losing recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about, my big picture thoughts on why this is such a devastating loss outside of a terrible season and just the lack of faith in the head coach, the lack of faith in the quarterback. It's the lack of faith in all of the most important positions in a roster. Like, it's all so much, and it does feel like those dark days have returned, quite honestly. And I say the reality is it's pre-Mike Vrabel, pre-Mike Mularkey. The pre-Mike Mularkey dark days feel like they have returned. But probably the biggest reason for that, out of anything, in my opinion, the biggest reason for it is that Will Levis is done. It's over. They tried. We have enough time and have seen enough mistakes to say it is over. Now, I'm going to dive into my feelings, but I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. It's going to be a crazy offseason for the Titans, an important offseason. You don't want to miss any of the content I'll be bringing you on the draft, free agency, all of that. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed, and be an everydayer. But Will Levis has one of the worst games that we've seen all season, which it's crazy that he's had games so bad that I can't even tell you this is his worst game of the year with confidence. I would have to go back and look to know for sure just how bad this game was compared to Chicago or New York or these other games where he lost the game for the team. But it's just too bad. There's just too much. He's just a walking turnover. It's never going to change. 8 for 12, 89 yards, 3 interceptions. And look, on the first interception, is he throwing to NWI on the in route and he's just super high? Is he throwing to Tyler Boyd on the out route and he's just way behind? I don't know, but no matter who he's throwing to, it's probably an interception. Whether it be NWI's man or whether it be the guy behind him, it's probably going to be picked off no matter who he decides to throw to at that time. Why is he throwing it? Why is he not getting away from it? And then you go to the second interception, and look, I try to be honest and fair. The second interception, it hit NWI in one hand because the throw was too high. Now, it was a bad throw. It was a tough catch. It was a bad bounce. It goes right to a Bengals defender. But at the end of the day, the throw is too high. And NWI is 6'2". He's not small. The throw is too high. It's the first problem. And sorry if this makes you mad, but I need the quarterback to elevate the other guys. If we want the quarterback that we want, you need to elevate the people around you and not be the person who makes the critical mistake. Yes, you need help in a team sport, but you can't be the guy who makes the bad throw and then follows it up with the high throw. At some point, you have to stop being the mistake maker. And then on the third interception, it's no wonder that Callahan benched him because it was egregious. It was absolutely egregious. He was trying to throw a deep in route against cover 2. The safety is right there and drove on it. There was no chance that ball is open, and that is what the biggest problem, the worst problem of today's loss for the Tennessee Titans and going forward is that Will Levis isn't the guy, and the worst problem of the Will Levis problem is that Will Levis can't see it. He can't see it. He can't see the defense. He can't understand where's going to be open. He can't understand how quickly the windows close. He just can't see it. Will Levis has every physical talent in the entire world. Every physical talent. He has the size. He has the strength. He's not a terrible athlete. He can move around a little bit. He's got straight line speed, even if he doesn't have agility. He really does look like Ryan Tannehill with super soldier serum. Like, you gave Tannehill steroids, and that's what you have in Will Levis. The problem is Mentally, he's not good enough. That's the problem, is he's not seeing the field. He's not making decisions quick enough. And I will say that his footwork in the pocket is just atrocious. He has zero poise, zero calm. He's such a frantic, nervous mover. And you add that and the processing issues and the turnover issues just lose you the game over and over and over and over again. So, it's just a problem. It's over. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade Levis. That's a conversation for later this week. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but you have to bring in a serious veteran here to compete with him. You have to bring in, you got to make them. I don't think the draft is going to be real possible. We'll talk about the quarterback pathways later this week, but the reality is Will Levis is not the guy. I go back to, we're at the Titans tribe meeting. We're all sitting in whether it's the people on Twitter, on Instagram, or the guys on Facebook, or the girls on TikTok, or the fans in the stands, or wherever you're from, or whatever you do. If you are a Tennessee Titans fan, we are all in this proverbial circle, and we all have to, again, take off the two-tone glasses and say, Will Levis is not the answer. He's never going to be the answer. He's not going to turn into the answer. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Peyton Manning. Them being bad early on doesn't mean that Will Levis has a chance to be good. It's over. It's over. Brian Callahan may start Will Levis later this year. He may go back to him next week. I don't know. Sure. Why not? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter now. But one thing's for sure is they cannot hand Will Levis a starting role next year in 2025. That makes me so frustrated because I'm not overly enamored by the quarterbacks in the draft. And I'm not overly enamored by the quarterbacks in free agency. They don't look good either. What are we going to do? Give Sam Darnold $50 million a year for 2 years or something like that? I don't want to do that either. That's no answer. That's depressing as hell. That's not an answer. The Titans are just going to be mediocre as crap and go, 7-10 for 2 more years. There's just no good pathway out. It's so depressing, but we have to acknowledge some things that are clear and true and obvious. And Will Levis is not going to be the guy. It's not going to happen. The Titans need a new quarterback. And the problem is I'm just not happy about any of the immediate answers. And the reality is if you're Brian Callahan, you cannot go into 2025 and have Will Levis as your starting quarterback because you're going to be fired. But the reality is for the Tennessee Titans long-term, going with Will Levis at quarterback next year, sucking, and then having a great pick in the 2026 draft with those quarterbacks is probably what's the best thing for the Titans long-term, but they'll go sign Sam Darnold or Jameis Winston, or they'll go draft Cam Ward or blah, 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 and they'll either not be interested in a quarterback next year because they just drafted one in the first round, or they'll be mediocre enough to avoid getting the good quarterback that would actually help them in the draft next year. It's just a continuation of exactly what happened a decade ago. And again, it starts with Will Levis not being the answer at quarterback. It continues to Brian Callahan probably not being the right head coach. Sucks. Congrats if you didn't like him. Awesome. The Titans suck again. I'm sure you're so happy. Your Sundays are so great now because you were right. Everything went wrong. Awesome. Congrats. Get in the comments. See me online. Tell me how glad you are that the Titans suck and you were right. Give me a break. Anyways. Dark times ahead. But I said one positive takeaway in my description, but there were a few positive takeaways. We'll talk about that before putting a bow on what really is one of the most depressing Sundays. And of course, it would be the Cincinnati Bengals who provided it to us. Thanks so much for that. Haven't felt that before. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the final month of the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So here's what happens. You get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And hey, Bengals money line would have been a great place to put that $5 bet. And the Titans play again next week, so you'll have another good opportunity. But that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. The dark days have returned, folks. Will Levis, not the only problem, but he's a major problem and is leading us right there. I do want to talk about a few positive takeaways, just a couple positives, but also going to put a bow on my thoughts. Before we continue, thanks again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL is a national show, so instead of hearing about the Titans, which I never talk about on Locked On NFL, you can hear about all the other stuff in the NFL and not have to care about what's going on with the Tennessee Titans from all the national folks who never know what they're talking about anyway. Check out Locked On NFL. It's free. I'm the lead host. I would appreciate your support over there if you would. It's been a tough season for all of us. Show me some love over at Locked On NFL. Get subscribed. But with that being said, a couple quick positives. Tyjae Spears looked pretty good in this game. He had 4 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown. That wasn't great, but he had 6 catches for 87 yards and had a touchdown there too. So 2 touchdowns. Had a lot to do with the fact the Bengals were playing prevent back off zone defenses at the end, and they were just letting the Titans hit underneath for Tyjae Spears. But it was just nice to see Tyjae Spears have some positive momentum. Hopefully he can play well throughout the rest of the season. Chigga 8 catches, 59 yards. It just makes me think that Tyjae Spears and Chigga are such better weapons than the way they're being featured this year. Now, nobody on the Titans offense is living up to expectations, of course. So why would Spears and Okonkwo when everyone's failing? But just, disappointing when I see them making plays all over the field and breaking tackles and being explosive in open field. Why haven't they gotten the ball more? I know Spears has been injured a lot of the season, but, just more disappointment is all that it comes down to. T'Vondre Sweat's strip of Joe Burrow and consequent run and stiff arm was, outside of the 98-yard touchdown to NWI, maybe the best play of the entire season for the Tennessee Titans. I know things went terribly, terribly wrong for most of the game, but Mason Rudolph went 21 for 26, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a terrible, brutal interception. But I just think that the offensive line is playing a little bit better than maybe it looks like all the time. I know J.C. Latham had the 2 false starts. Wasn't a great game, but for the most part, he dealt with Trey Hendrickson pretty well. I think that we'll see some pretty decent pass blocking grades coming out of this game for the Titans. I don't think it was a mockery out there on the offensive line. It was Will Levis's fault that he was throwing all these interceptions all over the place. So saw some good things. And of course, Tony Pollard played pretty well once again. It was nice to see James Williams out there for the Titans at linebacker. He didn't play exceptionally well by any means, but he's a 7th-round rookie who hasn't got a lot of action out on the field this year. But it was just nice to see him play after Kenneth Murray got banged up. But overall, done with the positives, folks. We're going back. We're going back to the dark ages. Again, I guess I try to be somebody who you guys can come to for information. I always have up-to-date knowledge on the roster and the transactions, and I try to bring realistic scenarios to the table for trades and free agent signings, all that stuff, because I want you to be the most informed Titans fan possible, but I also try to be entertaining. I try to make sure that we have fun. And with that, a lot of the times, I just like to be a fan with you guys. I just like to not trying to act like I'm some, out-of-the-box expert on everything and on God's green earth. But now I just come to you just as a fan, just me and you at a bar, drinking a beer on a park bench, enjoying a nice glass bottle Coca-Cola, whatever you want to imagine. That's what we're doing. And I'm just like, man, I'm sad. I'm sad about all of this. It really hit me hard today. Where the team is at, how far away it is from being back. I'm just really upset about it. Now, I feel a little numb just because they've lost so many games. So like the natural fire that's usually there for me after they lose of like, I'm angry, that isn't quite there today, but it's different. To me, it's like when they lose, it's like getting pricked. You know what I mean? It's like a pinch where it's just a fiery, sharp pain. This feels like a bad back. Like that's how I feel right now. Now, literally, I have a bad back. My lower back hurts. It's called being 30. But like this feels like a prolonged, like this is going to be a problem for a while. It's probably going to be a while before they get themselves out of this. Is Brian Callahan the guy to lead them out of it? How are they going to get a quarterback that's actually elite and can lift this team up? How can they solve offensive line and wide receiver and edge and safety and linebacker and the right tackle spot? And, like I like the tight ends, Chikakonkwo is a good number 2 and Josh Wiley is a good number 3. And but they don't have a playmaker there. And, JC Latham has played bad for a month. It's just like, man, L'Jarius Sneed is not going to play the rest of the year. It's just, it's all so sad. The haters were right. Everything is wrong. And we're going through the tunnel and you cannot see a light. Now, look, time moves on. As us fans who were fans in the late 2000s and into the teens, eventually it turns around. Like Mike Vrabel showed up and they got Tannehill and they drafted A.J. Brown and Jeff and like Derrick Henry. Things turned around. Like the Titans are going to be good again one day. They're going to be good again one day. But the reality is for most of this franchise's existence, we have had to go decades in between good football. Like the Titans went to the Super Bowl and then they didn't like the new version of the Titans that was good didn't come around until 2008, right? With the Kerry Collins, CJ Johnson, Chris Johnson, CJ 2K season. Like that took a while before that turned around. You know what I mean? And then the Titans didn't go to the playoffs for a decade. Think about that. That wasn't during the prime internet years that we're in right now, where we all experience this stuff together. So, it just makes me wonder, when AJ got traded, the moment we saw the video in the draft room of Mike Vrabel being mad and the news that you knew that it was over and it was going to be over for a while. But this is unluckily for Titans fans. You don't get a 3-4 year break and then you naturally just play better football. No, this is probably going to be a while. Probably see a couple more head coaches or a couple more GMs and, 3 more quarterbacks. Like right now, I'm just so depressed because it's just, and here's the thing too, Mike Vrabel wasn't going to make this team good. So a lot of people just want to go to that, but at least we knew we had something, I guess. One good thing. I guess that's a way to look at it. I don't know. It's just terrible, folks. And they're going to be Titans fans that try to laugh at the misery of all of this going wrong. Just know that they're hiding their sadness and they're choosing to lash out at other people because nobody, whether you thought this was right, wrong, or whatever, if you're a real Titans fan, you don't want the Titans to lose and be bad. If you want yourself to be right more than that's anytime I think something bad's going to happen for the Titans. I always hope that I'm wrong because them winning gives me more happiness and balance out the scale more than being right about them being bad gives me happiness. You know what I mean? So it's all right to be sad about what's happened here. There's no way around it though. They're bad. Nothing's going right. And I don't know if they have answers at any of the critical spots that you need to be a good football team. But with that being said, tomorrow we'll start to iron out the details of what to do. Probably talk about the quarterback paths ahead. Probably talk about realistic options. If the Titans were to get rid of Brian Callahan after one season, all we can do now is contemplate what the future could hold. But the dark days have returned, I am sad to say. With that, though, that'll be enough. That'll be enough for me today. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.